With the advancement of artificial intelligence, there's a lot of discussion about, will AI make effective professionals? Because gradually, AI is going to take over the jobs of a lot of professionals, teachers, maybe lawyers, doctors. You'll be surprised what's going to happen. And you might think, okay, AI is not human. They lack human qualities, empathy, compassion, sincerity. But then again, you look at the way a lot of people, professionals act, and they don't act very human. At the bottom of the day, at the bottom line is, it's about business for them and about meeting their needs for survival. Now, you always hear stories about medical malpractice, or people who go in to have a surgery, and the they're going for a back surgery and they end up paralyzed, or they didn't sign up to have an organ cut out and they wake up and they're missing a kidney. What have you? See, that's why doctors have medical malpractice insurance, whether or not they intended to or not, whether or not, their mind was in the right frame or they really cared. At the end of the road, it's just a business to them. It's your life. But to them, it's a business. It's a business transaction. It's their livelihood. It's kind of like cars. You could bring the car to a mechanic. You don't know whether to trust the mechanic or not. And you keep bringing it. And after 10, 15, 20 years, you decide whether it's worth it to keep it invested. But you see, your life is different than a car because you only get one life. And that's why it's so scary whether to trust a medical professional or not, because of, you don't know if they have because they have the medical malpractice insurance. And I know a lot of people go into the healthcare profession to help people, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, but there's a lot of them who are in it for the wrong reasons. They're just in it for a paycheck. They're in it to feed their ego. They're in it to get awards. They're in it to make a name for themselves so they can be an established person of stature. I used to be a volunteer in an ambulance corps. And a lot of the medical students were volunteers, but you could tell they weren't there because they wanted to do it. They did it as part of their rotations, because as soon as they graduated medical school, you didn't see them around. I remember I saw one of them about a year or two later in a hospital. I was visiting somebody. I walked up and I smiled and I shook his hand. He didn't even remember who I was. I used to work with doctors all the time. We work in cases together. I passed them in the hallway the next day after they would call me to help them with the case, and they would walk by like they didn't even know me. You go to a doctor oftentimes and they don't know your name. They have to look down at their tab. I think if you are making your livelihood out of people, you should just take 5 minutes at the beginning of the day and look at those pictures and those cases and memorize. Even if you just memorize half the names, at least it's an effort, because these are people who you're dealing with. I could think of stories of therapists too. I had some very, very bad experiences with therapists giving me bad advice, doing unethical things. I went to a psychiatrist one time. He wasn't even seeing me. He was having his students see me. And then whenever the student was confused or didn't know how to handle what I told the student would go running up to the whatever floor, the psychiatrist, and he would come walking down like he was the principal, like he had to come down and see me, and he would put his hand and introduce himself to me like he was meeting me for the first time. Obviously, he didn't remember who I was. And then finally, I think I don't want to get into it, but they just cut me out of services because he talked to me like I was a bad boy. I confided in the medical student about something I was doing, and he came down and said, "You're a bad boy." And I was eventually discharged. I went to a nurse one time who just cut me off. I needed meds. I ran out of meds, and the nurse wouldn't return my calls. And I almost had to go to I called my therapist, who called the nurse and said, "Oh, it's because his insurance isn't accepted. So I'll write in the prescription only this time. But if he wants to speak to me again, he has to pay. You see why I don't trust professionals? But at the end of the road, okay, in conclusion, the verdict is not in. We don't know who could do a better job or whether it's equal, just like cars. You see these new autonomous cars in the road, these self-driving taxis. We don't know. We don't know if it's safe yet to go on them. We don't know because they have to keep testing and experimenting and tweaking it. I'm just talking about it, you know. What's better? I would say probably, I don't know. I'll let you know. You let me know.